Thank you. So you may have mentioned this before, but did you have any sort of previous experiences, either volunteer or maybe summer jobs or just any other work that prepared you for work in the nonprofit?
I hadn't. I didn't have a story when I started working with the American Cancer Society. I knew people who'd had cancer, and I would say, raise your hand if you know somebody who's had cancer. I mean, that's everybody. It's like you have high blood pressure or diabetes anymore. So I didn't really have a lot of experience. I worked in human resources and worked with, which in a way was helping people, helping the company, helping the people kind of down the middle of the road. But we still rallied around if someone had an issue and they needed a benefit or things like that. So we did things like that as well. But when I first started, and we really talked a lot about what's your story. Well, I've had a cousin or an aunt, but not a real personal story until my mom got cancer. And then you really see things from a whole different perspective.
The little bit of experience I had was just through the YMCA, and I think the biggest thing from that I took away was they have a Strong Kids campaign each year, and it's purely to raise money so that the YMCA can always afford to offer programs and things to families who can't afford it, and it's a sliding scale fee type system, but no child is ever turned away because of their inability to pay. And so they always have like a month-long donation drive, and it may have changed a little bit, but so that campaigning of like, okay, we have 1 month where we're going to raise as much money as we can so that we can do these other things throughout the year. That's what's helping me in what we're doing with our project right now.
Thank you. Did you guys encounter any big surprises or any misconceptions you had about working in a nonprofit that were, again, surprising to you, or you found out that maybe weren't necessarily true once you began working in a nonprofit?
I think that we've changed a lot as an organization over the last 15 years. I can remember my first day was, well, here, watch these VHS, whatever.
VCR?
VHS. Yeah, that's what it was.
There's a V in there.
There's a V in there. Watch these tapes, and that'll kind of tell you what Relay's about. It wasn't a lot of training, which I came from a training background, so I was like, oh no. So I just started writing questions, and it was one of those moments where you were either going to fail or you were going to dig in and get the job done. So that was a little bit surprising for me for an organization that had been around since 1913. And of course, I continued to put my 2 cents worth in as often as I could. And then we made a 360. Our training program is one of the best training programs now. So much so that I said, hey, they're kind of learning things that maybe some of your senior staff might want to retrain some of us. But no big. I think I just went into it as this is a job and this is what I need to do, whether it's profit or not for profit. I don't think other than the training issue there was any big surprises for me.
That's always good.
Yeah.
Again, my scenario is totally different because there's no training. We're just learning as we go. So the biggest surprise for me was how easy it was to begin, like to start up a nonprofit. Of course, you have to have some money, and so we had this money left over from Scotland's Memorial Fund. Literally, we had like $2,000. We didn't have a lot, but it was enough. And so I think, from what I hear from other organizations, it used to be a lot harder to like get going with the IRS and everything, but now you can do it all online, and so it's pretty quick and painless. So we had to get a board together, and so on our board, luckily I had a high school classmate who still is local, and she's an accountant, and I was like, hey, number one, will you be on our board? Will you be our treasurer? And how do we get this going? Like, how do we do this? What paperwork do we need? And so we literally sat in her office. She was online. We got registered with the federal government. It was about $400. We got registered with the state government. It was about $25. We had to list our board of directors, which, again, because this is so personal, it's made up of family members, which is a struggle sometimes. But it's good because we're really informal when it comes to stuff like that. But So I was surprised at how quickly we were up and going and official, and we had our letter that said, hey, you're a 501c3 organization, and anyone who donates money to you gets to write that off on their taxes. So that makes people want to give you money a lot quicker and easier, especially at the end of the year. And so I was surprised at how quickly we were official. And then working with the board, I guess that was my own fault, because I assumed it would be easier because they were family and we can just tell each other what we think, but the problem is we can just tell each other what we think. And so it seems like, there's always someone who's like, well, I don't really agree with this, and, but it's good because no one takes offense, we just work it out. But no, I haven't come up with any other bad surprises really yet, so hopefully that continues. But again, I said we're like in our third month now, so.
Going strong.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about some challenges that you face in your current position, or any challenges you faced over your course of working for a not-for-profit organization.
Well, I think our biggest issue is recruiting volunteers. People know what we do, and people will get on the edges and they'll help. They'll attend the event, but until they've actually been touched by cancer, then they get that fire that they want to fight back. So that's probably the hardest part. And you would think that the bigger a community is, and my communities vary, that it would be so much easier. But it really comes down to making that one-on-one personal ask with other people. Who do you know? Who's in your circle that you can invite to the next meeting? So that's something I think we struggle with every year, because sometimes people are there for a few years and then they need a break, and then you have new people that come in and out. And especially if there's something going on a college campus, which our event is college and community together, but we have many sororities and fraternities that participate, but the people rotate out every year. So it's almost like it's a whole new team every year, unless those that came before you leave some really good detailed plans about what they did.
One of the challenges that we are facing right now, and it's relatively minor because we're still doing okay, our funds are, we need to make sure we have funds so that when there's a family need, we can send them a donation. At this point, we haven't had to turn away anyone, and we are getting ready. I sent a donation today to our 6th family, and there's a 7th family that we are getting ready to support. And so our big thing is just making sure, our big challenge is making sure that we always have the funds. So it's all about fundraising. And so we've been very fortunate that we've had very generous donors, and these have really just been individuals who have donated money to us. And we have a couple of partnerships set up in the community where we have like a Bellocinos night, where if you go in and say you're with the Scotland Park Project, then they will donate a certain percentage of the proceeds that night from like 5 to 9 to our organization. So we had our first one February 9th, and we got $70 from it. I'm like, that's $70 we would have had before. And so we have one set up on March 9th. You got to go in and tell them you're with the Scotland Park Project, though. So we have several of them set up, and so that's a relationship that we've built that will help with fundraising. But we had set out to really apply for grants and find funding, but because we're so new, people don't really want to give money to an organization that's very new because they don't really know how long they're going to last. And a lot of big organizations that give big money, like the top donating organizations, like in the U.S., we searched like the top 50. A lot of them have more specific parameters that they're looking for. So they only support family, or they only support organizations in their immediate area, or they only support based on certain criteria, like your focus has to be on, sustainability or education or things like that. And so we haven't found our niche yet as far as, what grants we really qualify for. And I'm thinking now it's probably going to be a couple of years before we really get going with that, because then we can say, hey, we've been here for this long, this is how many families we've supported. We have these little fundraising things going on all the time, but, we're looking for bigger grants and things, because I would love to be able to grow the organization and provide more services, like maybe grief counseling or a library of resources or something like that. But that, of course, will take more money. So I think fundraising is the big challenge that we're facing.
Always about the money.
Oh,
Gotta
yeah.
have it.
Yes.
Gotta have it. So So what does a typical day look like for both of you when you're working? Obviously you have a paying job, but what does it look like a typical day?
Sometimes it's a long day. So today started at 8 and it'll be 9:30 probably before I get home. So it could be 13 or 14 hours. So as Amanda said earlier, you have to have a plan. You just can't say, what am I going to do today? You have to have a plan, especially if you're pulled in a lot of different directions. So either Friday, the week before, you kind of look at your week, what meetings do I have, kind of get your plan in place. I was in Memphis, Missouri last night, so I knew I had to have materials and agendas and things for that meeting. Every event happens, most of them happen in June, so they're all on different levels of when they do certain things. So you have press releases, and we have put volunteer committee positions for all of those, but if we have a committee that maybe doesn't have a publicity chair, then it falls back on the event leadership or your staff partner. So a lot of continuing education with us as well, so there may be an opportunity for 5 conference calls this week for continuing education for staff, webinar, conference call, whatever. There are plenty of them. Some of them I get to attend, some of them, thank goodness, they record them and I can listen to them on a drive, which is good. Just constantly kind of recruit teams, recruit sponsors, wherever we are. Like with Kirksville, we're less than 6 weeks out, so we need to be thinking about ordering t-shirts, and do we have our sponsorship levels lined out. You try to be in the field 2 or 3 days a week and kind of keep Fridays and another day in front of your computer answering those emails, which they give us on our phone now, so we can do it from anywhere. Weekends, sometimes we have kickoff events, so this week I'll be working Sunday because we have a spaghetti kickoff supper in Cahokia, Missouri. Survivor dinners, things like that. So it's not a Monday through Friday 8 to 5 job at all. But it's a family-oriented company, and they know that if I've had to work 2 days until 9:30 or 10 o'clock, or 3 days, that, hey, if I need to run to the doctor, go to the doctor. If you need to go run an errand, or if your lunch hour goes over, then that's okay, because you're giving more than your 40 hours a week anyway. And it's a little different for me because I work from home. The office I actually work out of is in Jefferson City, Missouri. But it just makes sense to have someone, and I'm from Hannibal, Missouri, so someone that's closer to the area that can travel to the community. So that was a little hard at first, but yeah, if I've worked 2 or 3 12 or 13-hour days, and I'm walking by that laundry machine, and the washer needs a load of towels, then they go in. So that's the kind of organization that I like. It's very flexible.
What about you, Amanda?
So my typical day is that I work 8 to 5. I'm an admissions counselor with A.T. Still University. So I was telling her I'll be here tomorrow for your career expo and grad school fair for my paying job. But, so that's 8 to 5. But like, for instance, last week I was traveling, I was recruiting in New York. And so I was in New York all week. So obviously not much got done with our project at all. I made a couple Facebook posts maybe, but, last night was like my catch-up night where, after work and after the kids go to bed, then I spend time, I get my emails for both. We have an email account for the project too, so I can check my email from my phone too, but, going through and making sure that I have receipts for all of the donations that we've made so I can mail them out to the donors who made them. We have a fundraiser going on right now on Facebook. Well, I'm promoting it on Facebook, but, anyone who makes a donation earns entries for these wooden planters that we had donated to us. And so it's marketing that. And so, a Facebook post here and there, those are things that I can do, in my paying job, quickly. But, it's fitting in, at nighttime too, making sure that you've answered any emails that have come in. We ordered our t-shirts, and so I was in charge of all of that. ordering them and then sorting them and making sure that they get to where they need to go and how many do we have left and who's paid and who hasn't. And so all of